When I started my Imperial Guard army, obviously there were some go-to guys.
You could probably use some armour.
Well, obviously. Anywho, I had encountered good fortune with Station Forge, and so used their Grim Guard tank to give me a squadron of Leman Russ battle tanks. I took them out against Custodes, Tau, Death Guard, Dark Angels, World Eaters, but then I faced off against the Catachan jungle fighters, and realised then that they might be a little on the bloated side. Here's one of mine next to a store-bought Leman Russ.
Yeah, that's not good.
Now, I was okay with this because it kind of had a suitable historical feel. The Catachan Leman Russ akin to a Sherman, with the Krieg filled in the more massive Tiger tank variant. But it soon became apparent in my matches that the larger profile was costing me. The big fellas were just so much harder to hide at the start, and cover became a problem, along with manoeuvring through the ruins and other terrain stuff. Okay, let's try and get a little more competitive by becoming a little more little. Deltax has a nice free tank that looks a bit more accurately scaled. The price is right, so let's give that a go. First up, I had just moved, and so I need to set up my printer and make sure it survived the bumps and bounces in the U-Haul truck. Z-axis calibration, loosen the build plate screws, drop on a piece of paper and run the cycle. Down comes the plate, it settles, retighten the screws and proceed. In goes the vat, screw it down, pour in some resin and run the test print. Pop it off and dunk it in the pickle strainer of alcohol and phew! Looks great, my printer survived the move.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Okay, the main hull. This print comes with the spons and weapons already in place if you want them, and I definitely do. I'm a multi-melter kind of fellow, so what the hell, I'm going with just those. I could try and explode the model, remove the spons and weapons, and print them separate, so I can swap them out. But that seems like effort, and they are going to be fiddly if they are as small as I hope so. So,
Screw that!
there are two exhaust variants, one with them paired on one side and the other with them on each side near the tracks. I think I'll save the latter for the tank commander and have the two regular tanks with the vents located on one side. Exporting, and oh dear, would you look at that, the whole thing is completely solid. That's going to be a shit ton of resin. Okay, let's discard this file and start again. In goes the tank hull, tilt it a little so that it is more likely to successfully print, and then use the hollowing function. I'm going with 2.5mm. And then auto-generate some light supports. And export. Yes, there we go. A nice empty interior to save on the resin. I mean, I like the weightiness of a solid print, but it does empty the bottle rather. Off to the printer, and after hitting print, jump into the settings as the plate begins its descent. I found larger prints tend to work better. If you up the bottom layer count, I go 10 for monsters and vehicles, and bottom exposure time is set to 45. Okay, the print went fine, everything came out great, but now, a problem I had not anticipated. Printing the hull in one go is all well and good, actually very good, as I've had some other prints where things just won't lock together. There's a tiny distortion or something, and so nothing connects, right? Wasting the whole thing. But the trouble here is, it doesn't fit in my pickle strainers. A Ziploc container will have to do, but with the supports, it's still too big. But because this is such a beefy fellow, I can just break him off the tracks and the tank then fit it just inside perfectly. Pour in the alcohol, drop the lid on, and just give it a gentle swirl around for a while. That worked great. Then, off into some warm water to loosen up the last few supports so I can pop them off and not risk damaging the details and more fragile bits. Now for the rest of the model. Smoke launchers, antenna, turrets with a variety of weapons and hatches. In preparation for the tank commander, I'm also printing one open hatch as well. Hollow everything out and then tilt them. Add supports, and then as a precaution, add a few heavier ones here and there to make sure the print succeeds. These are on a side that will be against the hull, so they won't be visible anyway. Exporting. Yep, Everything is nice and hollow to save on resin, and then all came out of the resin vat just grand. Now, the turret was a bit of a tight fit into the hull, making me glad I could print the whole thing in one go anyway, but just by rotating it a few times, enough resin was worn away that it then slotted in nicely. Some blasts of power duster compressed air blows off this dust, and then the same on the other tank. With the models ready, drop them into a cardboard box, head outside and give them a blast of Chaos Black primer. Once dry, flip them over and get the underside. On to painting. A comprehensive layer of Abaddon Black dabbed over everything and worked into all those nooks and crannies. Then Iron Hand Steel Base, dip a big dry brush in and then dance it across the entire structure, catching the edges and raised items for a nice gritty, grimy industrial look. Camouflage. This is a Leman Russ battle tank. It doesn't hide or lurk. It rumbles forward, dirty, dusty, grimy, with guns blazing and cannon booming. Identification. I want to go a little more subtle than previously, which actually works well with the design of this print. The only smooth areas all seem to be at the back, so therefore only those behind the tank can see their regiment and identification in order to vox in information, report in, call in, let HQ know what's happening. Those in front, well, they are obviously about to die. They don't need to know which tank and which division this armoured beast is from, as they are about to be torn apart by blast and bolt, seared by flame, or crushed under caterpillar tracks. So, corn red. Paint a panel on the turret and colour in the Aquila on the rear, and also on the back of both sponsons where there is a smooth, featureless plate. This will help highlight the black emblem transfers I'll be adding. A light wash of Carroburg Crimson Shade darkens the paint around the edges and in some of the lumps, giving it a more weathered and beaten look, aged by countless forays into unbridled warfare. I have been basing my Krieg with sand from Red Rock, Nevada. I snagged a decent sized Ziploc bag of it a while back while climbing. Lugging that out of the canyon with all my gear was tons of fun. Anywho, oddly, Cadian Flesh Tone turned out to be the perfect Citadel paint to match the sand, and so I've been using it to dry brush and get the effect of kicked up dust. So, dabbing the dry brush in, I started applying it to the bottom of the tracks, and as the paint gets shed, dance it across the upper areas, getting the look of sand encrusted tracks and dust that has slowly built up on the lower reaches of the tank. Transfers! From my regimental guide, the Leman Russ tanks have the bull emblem, so I'll need those and some Roman numerals with a yellow stroke to help emphasise them just a little. As to naming the tanks, Nadenlos Krieg for Merciless, and Fuchtel Krieg for Broadsword. And in readiness for my tank commander, I came across the fat electrician who did a great video on Lafayette Pure, aka War Daddy, the tank commander named him Fury. Now, the movie could only give the slightest hint of what War Daddy did. Indeed, it pretty much just uses his nickname, because Brad Pitt's character is called Don Collier. Anywho, I thoroughly recommend giving it a watch. Lafayette was a goddamn legend. If they made a movie that was a real telling of his accomplishments, people would be walking out of the cinema because they'd be, what a load of over-the-top bullshit. I wouldn't buy that even in a Rambo movie. But nope, all his deeds are legit and legendary. The only reason he didn't get a Medal of Honor is because he was part of a crew, and the nation's highest honor can only go to an individual. Anywho, War Daddy Sherman was called In the Mood, and so I'll be taking inspiration from that. Launish, Krieg for Moody. Print them on transfer paper, cut off the top strip where the prints are lined up so I can just print onto the next area and not have to waste a whole sheet for just a few transfers. Grab the transfers with some tweezers and give them a blast of varnish to lock in the ink. Let that dry, paint some micro set to the destination, dip the transfer in water and let it soak for a sec. Then place next to the spot and with an X-Acto steer it off and move it into position before giving it another application of micro set and push out the air bubbles. One sponson gets a numeral, the other sponson gets the bull emblem, and the turret gets the name of the tank. And then back to the box for a blast of varnish to lock everything in, let it dry, flip them over and do the same again. So, here we have a pair of Leman Russ battle tanks, named after the Primarch of the Space Wargs. It is the epitome of versatility and dependability, the primary tank of the Imperial Guard. It is employed throughout the galaxy in vast numbers. Easily produced, the forges of the Imperium grind out legions of these metal beasts to throw at the foes of humanity with relentless and unending fury. The tank was developed during the Dark Age of technology and was subsequently lost to the Age of Strife and remained lost for countless centuries. Then, during the Great Crusade, as the Emperor and his forces poured out from Terra to reunite humanity and craft the Imperium, the Space Wolves came upon a hive world called Nova Borilla. The planet was dominated by a Xeno species called the No-Man, and had done so for millennia. That is, until the Space Wolves descended from the skies and utterly exterminated the alien tyrants. In the aftermath of this liberation, the STC template was discovered and brought to the Mechanicum of Mars, who named the vehicle in honour of the Legion's Primarch. As soon as the first examples were produced on the forged world of Ryza, it was clear that the design would change the tide of countless campaigns, and it quickly went into mass production. 7.08 meters long, 4.86 meters wide and 4.38 high. It is crewed by a commander, driver, main gunner, loader, and if equipped with side sponsons, 2 remote gunners. Spacious inside it is not, but effective in war it most certainly is. Frontal armour is 150mm thick, making it highly resistant even to dedicated anti-tank fire. Side armour, however, is considerably thinner, dedicating the Leman Russ to frontal assaults with massed numbers on either side to ward against flanking manoeuvres. The powerful engine runs on just about any flammable liquid, giving it an impressive range of 105 miles on 360 gallons of fuel, a range mimicked by the Land Raider. That is about 3.5 miles per gallon, and one must consider that pre-Dark Age of technology era tanks could only manage anything from 0.5 to 1.38 miles per gallon. Depending on how well tuned the machine is, it has a top speed of anywhere between 29 to 70 kilometers per hour with impressive maneuverability. A turret-mounted battle cannon with a magazine of 40 rounds and a hull-mounted las cannon, heavy flamer or heavy bolter with 600 rounds are standard loadouts, along with a hunter-killer missile and a smoke launcher for defense. The Leman Russ can also be fitted with side sponsors bearing either a pair of heavy flamers or a pair of heavy bolters. While considerably more rare, they can also be fielded with paired multi-melters or plasma cannon, to offer an even more formidable close-range offensive output. Additional weapons come in the form of a pintle-mounted heavy stubber or storm bolter, but it is the main turret weapon that defines the Leman Russ, and it can be swapped out for one of numerous variants to customise the tank and tune it to the needs of almost any engagement. Twin-linked las cannons see the reserve of shells replaced with power cells to elevate the Leman Russ to a more potent armour-killing format. Sacrificing range for sheer destructive capabilities, the Demolisher makes the Leman Russ a close heavy fire support vehicle, ideal for plunging deep into the midst of the enemy and pouring out devastation in every direction. The Nova Cannon employs intense total body disruption, making it ideal for urban combat and other anti-infantry capabilities. High caliber ballistic shells negate enemy cover and flatten large areas with ease, penetrate structures to batter opponents with devastating overpressure, and because of this, it is also an excellent weapon to deploy in dense jungle. Twin-linked autocannon serve as an effective counter to lightly armoured horde-like armies, rapid heavy fire being excellent at countering such opponents, tearing apart heavy troops and shattering mechanised columns. Produced on the forge world of Ryza, this tank's plasma destroyer cannon is as devastating as it is temperamental. Despite emergency venting, heat shielding and coolant systems, the weapon has extremely high power demands, and catastrophic failure is a common occurrence that damages or destroys the tank and often vaporizes adjacent troops, whether friend or foe. Despite this hazardous nature, it is an exemplary weapon for carving apart heavy armour, and the exterminator crews are regarded as foolish, suicidal, insane, inhumanely brave, or a mixture of all of those. The primary anti-infantry variation, the Punisher Gatling cannon, is a rapid-firing slug thrower that hurls a withering barrage of fire to cut down vast numbers of enemy troops with satisfying ease. Increasingly rare because the Orc warlord Argard the Defiler stormed the forge world of Tigris in the 35th millennium, destroying the only known STC for this weapon, making it far more difficult to replicate. The Vanquisher cannon is the supreme tank killer, almost twice the barrel length of the Imperial battle cannon. Its long range delivers a shaped charge that can pierce the thickest armour and densest hide to unleash incredible damage. The greatest monsters and most formidable tanks and vehicles are helpless against the sheer potency of the Vanquisher. And this is why the Forge worlds persevere so diligently in copying from the remaining arsenal while they can. The Leman Russ battle tank, durable, effective, highly variable, and supplied in massive quantities. It is little wonder this brutal war machine has become the backbone of the Astra Militarian's armoured might.